chance, stuck in my head, not gonna leave it at that. Taking the lead, feeling your heat, just wanna give you my best. I don't even know your name, but you got me, 'cause you're on the dime. We don't know what happens next, but you got me, 'cause I'm next in line. You make it look so easy, making me feel so dreamy. Not the one who pays for drinks, but you got me, 'cause you're on the dime. Got me locked in now. Go ahead and take a shot. Do you really want me? Maybe you're just playing. The way you're making it move, yeah, you do it so smooth. Make it all about you. Can have it all if you want. Taking the chance, stuck in my head, not gonna leave it at that. Taking the lead, feeling your heat, just wanna give you my best. Taking the chance, stuck in my head, not gonna leave it at that.
Hi, this is Gaylon McDowell. Welcome again to the Meta Behind Relationships on the 5S for Love Network. We've been discussing a lot of powerful subjects around how to apply practical metaphysics to everyday relationships. And today I want to speak about sabotage, specifically subconscious sabotage, because I think that's really important. And again, to discuss this topic, I'm bringing the creator and founder of the 5S for Love Network, Christine Burkett, into the conversation. Christine, are you there?
Hey, Gaylon, how are you?
I'm excellent. How about yourself?
Well, I'm excited about today. I think I need to learn something about the sabotage of subconscious doing things within relationships. I mean, we talk, but I think subconsciously we all do things and not realize this is what we're doing when they embark upon us. So I'm excited about today's conversation. And you know me, I got my sticky notes, so I'm ready.
All right, that's what I'm talking about. So I have some, I know I have some questions I want to cover, and you have some questions. So let's just get to it.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay, what is subconscious sabotage in relationships? So First of all, let's define the words. When you start talking about subconscious, you're talking about something that is not necessarily always a part of your conscious awareness. There's, some people define it as, there's what you know that you know. There's what you don't know, and then that you don't know that you don't know. The subconscious sabotage happens at the level of don't know that you don't know. And even if something is brought to your awareness, it's so subversive that it still interferes with your relationship, even though it even could be communicated to you, but you just can't see it because it's so absolute. It actually becomes your paradigm. The word sabotage is interesting because it has several meanings in Webster's dictionary. Let me give you a few. The destruction of an employee's property, such as tools or materials, or hindering of manufacturing by discontented workers. Obviously, we're not talking about that. destructive or obstructive action carried on by a civilian or enemy agent to hinder a nation's war effort. We're not talking about that. An act or process tending to hamper or hurt. Now we're talking about something, an act or
Okay.
process tending to hamper or hurt. The last one is deliberate subversion. All right. So when we start talking about what is subconscious sabotage, we're talking about beliefs, we're talking about ways of being, perceptions, points of views that are so subconscious, so unconscious that you think that this is how the world is showing up and this is how you are in the world that is showing up. In other words, you don't make a distinction between this unconscious belief system that is running on automatic, like a program. And you're an IT person,
Right.
Christine, like a program. The software is running automatically and it's running in the background and it's affecting everything else that's going on with the computer. For example, you know, every once in a while at the church, we have to upgrade our security protocols with our, because of viruses and malware and
Right.
spyware and every other kind of ware. So what ends up happening is when we don't do those things, someone either can hack or a virus can get on the computer system or the server. And not only will it affect the server, it will affect every computer connected to the server. Now, when we have erroneous beliefs that don't work for healthy relationships, it can affect every relationship, but specifically if we're in this context of intimate relationships, it can affect you and you don't even know that this virus belief is actually creating deliberate subversion to your relationship. That's really subconscious sabotage because you'll start thinking, feeling, saying, doing, and reacting in ways that are not productive and harmonious for your relationship.
So, Galen, when you say that, and I know you say it's a subconscious act, but what happens when that subconscious paradigm, you begin to speak, process, and live everything through that paradigm, and regardless of what anyone says, that's the only thing you see, believe through that lens. I have a really good friend, and as many conversations as I've had with this person about life in general, that one vocal point, that one voice consistently comes up, and that person doesn't see anything outside of that. It's like if you said, that's a beautiful person, they're going to look at it and say, well, why would you say that? Look at their hair. Look at this. It's like it's always a pushback on seeing the positive in something.
Okay, well, it depends obviously on the relationship you have with the person, because if that kept happening around me, either if I felt as though it was worth it to be around that person, because let me just
Right.
be clear, because I'll ghost people. Uh and I don't mean that from a standpoint of relationships. So let's be clear. I'm a married guy. I don't mean ghost like, okay, I'm married to somebody and I'm gonna stop talking to her and leave. No,
Right.
I'm not meaning that. I mean, I create distance for myself
Right.
when I feel as though something isn't harmonious. Now, from that perspective, I would just ask a person, I was like, do you realize that anytime I compliment someone that you have a negative comment or you challenge the belief that I have about something, even if it's not yours, do you recognize that when these type of situations and circumstances come up, you always have a criticism of their hair, their dress, their whatever? Do you realize, see, instead of saying you're wrong, do you
Right.
realize,
Do you realize? Okay. So you
do you
change your
realize this is
approach.
happening? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, right. So instead of saying you're wrong for saying that or challenging, okay, do you realize that every time I say something like this, you say something like that? Do you
Yeah.
realize because I'm becoming very aware of it. And I just want to know, what is it about our conversations that that create this experience? Because I want to be clear, because I want to be able to have wonderful and nice conversations with you. And I also want to be in the space to where if I, again, make a compliment, or if I say something that I like something, or if I have an opinion about something that is not yours. I'm not saying that I'm not open to criticism of my own opinions,
Right.
depending on what it is. However, it seems like this happens all the time. And
Yeah.
I don't like the experience of it. And I'm asking you to help me understand why that's happening. So
And
again,
I like that.
instead of
Like,
statements,
the reason
questions,
why.
right?
Right.
Because when you make people, this was what Socrates did. Instead of just giving answers, he kept asking people questions. If you keep asking questions, people will dig down.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. People have been subconsciously, especially now on social media. I think it's even worse now than ever, because now it's the ego feeds it more, because we can see more.
Mm-hmm.
The inner hater, the inner criticizer is on overload now, because we're just picking up our phones and scrolling up and down and evaluating people's lives.
Yeah.
Many of whom we never know or meet. Back in the day, you lived your life. You saw something on the news. You saw something on the TV when you came home from work. I'm talking about having computers and laptops and phones and whatever, social media, TMZ, and so you had to watch the TV show that was like Entertainment Tonight to find out what was going on with Tom Cruise's life, or with Billy D. Williams's life. Now that's on a 24-hour news cycle. You had to watch Walter Cronkite, or the evening news, or the 6 o'clock or the 10 o'clock news, or the morning news to find out the things that were going on in the world. Now news is its own thing, and it's geared toward particular demographics, and they're even, I don't even want to call it news sometimes, the pseudo news many times that's being projected by big money to pull people in. So what ends up happening is the inner hater, the inner criticizer, the inner divider, and I'm making up terms, is always on 24/7 now. So it creates a different thing. It's easy to say, I was on social media, I didn't like Beyonce's shoes with her dress. Like, okay, cool. Now that's fine. But then people just keep elaborating on
it. Yeah.
And this is why I tell people, you have to figure out how to pull people's lives as a teacher, as a practitioner, as a coach, as a guru, as a mentor, how to pull people out of the world into their world. Okay, what is that? Why does that matter to you so much? What does that mean to you? I was just listening briefly this morning on YouTube, scrolling as I was getting ready, and somebody was called into the Dave Ramsey show. It wasn't even the Dave Ramsey's YouTube page. Somebody else was commenting on it. Somebody calls into his page, insults him, and then wants to have a conversation. And my question is, if you don't like what he teaches, or you disagree with, then go do you. But there's no reason to call his show, insult him, even if you don't like him. And you have a right not to like him. But this sense of entitlement that I have to go and engage you is ridiculous. But anyway, I don't want to get off subject, because that'll.
Oh no, but I like that, because that kind of lends to what the next question is. Like, what are the signs? What are some of the signs that you in a relationship that you're doing self-sabotage yourself?
Well, the first thing is you're doing things that you said you wouldn't do, and you're still doing them. That's the first thing.
Like what? So give an example.
Okay. So if you said, okay, I'm going to communicate a particular kind of way, and then you're doing the exact opposite. Okay. That was your own commitment. Yet your behavior is showing up differently. If you said, okay, the wife says, hey, can you be home by 7 o'clock so we can sit down as a family and eat dinner together? You made that commitment. All right. But then you don't do it. You said yes.
Right.
But then you don't do it. And, those are the type of things, and I can, we can go 15, 20 examples, but the main thing is your word is not matching your actions.
Okay.
That's self-sabotage, because you've committed your word to doing something, and yet you're doing something else. Second thing, something has been clearly communicated to you, and yet you still do it. All right. Like, it's been brought to your attention now, like what you said with your friend. It's been brought to your attention, and yet you still do something different. That's a sign of subconscious sabotage, because what it's saying to me from a standpoint of a metaphysician, and a metaphysician is a student and teacher of the laws and principles of the universe, just means that there is something that is happening at the subconscious level that has created this paradigm to where a person is communicating to you very clearly what they need, what they want in a relationship. And you hear them, but there's no comprehension. There's no understanding, even when you say yes, because your mind is so dense and opaque to what is actually being said to you. So a person says, I need you to do A, B, and C, and you do X, Y, and Z. So they come back to you. I need you to do A, B, and C, and then you do X, Y, and Z. Then the person comes back and communicates again. I don't understand why you agreed that you would do A, B, and C, and then you do X, Y, and Z. And people think, okay, you're disrespecting me. It's not disrespect always. Right. Sometimes it's just that person does not have the context, the mindset, I would say in my vocabulary, the consciousness to actually deliver that result, because the subconscious belief system is so strongly trending habitually another way that the person is not exercise the will, determination, and integrity to change those beliefs. So when in doubt, habit kicks in. When you're not paying attention, habit kicks in. And subconscious sabotage is habitual thinking and feeling that produces words and actions that are inconsistent with what you are consciously saying you want.
Will not do. Folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we get back. We're going to talk through the signs and the process of how do you stop self-sabotaging your relationships. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We know what you made of. I do better offline. Yeah. I've been calling to a guy. I'm in tune with the signs. I'm just trying to let go. I'm just trying to be me. I'm just trying to do Moon landed with the elevation, arm strong with the levitation. My third eye needed calibration. That was heat rock when I notated. I've been going crazy. Stone face when I kill beat, leaving no trace on location. Premeditated, ayy.
Together to not give myself the pressure. I don't know what to do with it. Should I let him go? Go. I don't know what to do with it. Should I let him go? I fall for his eyes when he's staring into mine. Know he's bad for me. So what's standing in my way? He's out of my league, I feel insecure, but I hope this is real, yeah. He doesn't mind at all, he wants my juice like together. Do not give myself the pressure. I don't know what to do with it. Should I let him go? Oh, go, go. I don't know what to do with it.
Welcome back to the meta behind relationships. We're talking about subconscious sabotage today, and today again I'm bringing on the host as a co-host and the person to just have this conversation with me, the CEO, founder, and creator of the 5 F's to Love platform, Christine Burkett. Okay, Christine, so we're ready for some more questions. Let's do this.
Well, you know, one of my biggest thing is prevention. I think being in IT, I want to find out, what do I need to do to stop doing what I'm doing? So how can you stop sabotaging your relationships?
Okay, so I'm going to use a term that I want people to write down. And the term is erase and replace. Erase and replace. In some self-help books, sometimes they call it the law of substitution. All right, so you're not getting the results that you desire. So first, that requires self-evaluation. If I'm the common denominator in all of my stuff, then what's actually happening to me? You can do your meditation, you can pray if you're a person of faith, you can journal, but the main thing is you sit down and you start asking yourself really hard questions. Okay. All right. And then allow yourself the ability to take time to be still enough to contemplate those questions. That's one. Two, if you have people that you love and trust, ask them about how you show up, because sometimes we have blind spots, and it's good to be able to say, okay, how am I showing up this way? You know, what have you observed? I don't mean that what they say is gospel, but the people that are closest to you can many times give you an opportunity to see how you're showing up unconsciously. Now, once you've identified some beliefs, points of views, perspectives that don't work, the question then comes into play is few things. One, forgiveness. I forgive myself for showing up in an unconscious way, and I choose to show up more empowered. You have to work with that concept. I'm just made that up as a statement, but it's actually pretty good as a statement to say to yourself. And then you start to look up what would be the positive alternative of what it is that you have been doing previously. Okay, so for instance, I learned this from one of my spiritual fathers, the Reverend Herbert Lassiter, who actually made his transition maybe a couple of months ago, not even 2 months. And he used to say to me and others, not just me, he would say that, you know how scripture says a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways, you know, let him not think he'll receive anything from the Lord. He says, what if you flip that and said a stable-minded man, a single-minded man is stable in all of his ways.
I like that.
Let him expect to receive from the Lord. And when I looked at it, I was like, okay, people always talk about you're double-minded. But what is the benefit of being single-minded? So when you look at what you've been doing previously that didn't work, start asking yourself, what would be the positive alternative for that? And then once you figure that out, then what I would do is write them out in affirmative statements. You know, I am this, I am that, etc. Or I commit to this, I dedicate to that, and whatever that is. And then at the end of those statements, say something like, thank you, I am grateful, etc. And then if you really want to get high level, and this is high level, you know, build some accountability into it. You know, one of the things that I love that Jack Canfield does with his wife is he says, as a husband, on a scale of 1 to 10, how have you experienced me this week? And if a person this is real. And if a person gives less than 10, what would it take for me to get to 10? Now, that doesn't mean you have to do anything, but the question requires, because sometimes people are expecting you to fulfill things that they should be fulfilling themselves as a partner. Right. So what that question does is it makes them contemplate, do I really need them to fulfill this? Or, hey, you said you were going to be home at 7 o'clock and you weren't.
Right.
You said that, you were going to pick the kids up from soccer practice. You said you were going to, I know you don't like this one, Christine, make 4 meals this week. Whatever that might be. So if I'm experiencing less than a 10,
right,
you tell me how I can help you experience me as a 10. That way you don't have to figure out everything for yourself. See, what ends up happening is in relationships, how can I say this? People are giving what they think their partner wants instead of what their partner actually wants. And instead of asking, they just assume. And then when breakdowns happen because the relationship isn't fulfilling, then people want to complain. I've given this person everything that I have. That tends to be more, a conversation if somebody's frustrated when somebody leaves or somebody is threatening to leave. Right. I do all of these things. I give them all. I have time and I do this and I take care of the kids and I pay the bills or I do whatever the argument is. Instead of going back to, what do you need? What do you need from me for this relationship to be fulfilled? Now, here's the thing. That doesn't mean the person will do it. Okay? We got to be clear about that. And we'll deal with that later. But that doesn't mean the person will do it. But questions like that will at least create the conversation for you to get positive, constructive feedback on the relationship and some accountability about how you're showing up. Because here's the thing, anything that is really successful in life has accountability, has ways of measurement. All right. What, as I often tell people, how do you determine if this is successful? Whatever the field is,
right?
You have to have a measurement of low, medium, and high level success.
Right.
I'm not expecting this podcast to do Joe Rogan numbers, for instance.
Right.
That at the beginning of this, that's unrealistic. However, what would determine it to be a success? That's a question that you need to have in your relationship, in the different aspects of your relationship. What would determine success financially in your relationship, in the bedroom, with communication, with supporting their ambitions and dreams, with parenting? What determines success? And if you're not clear, then that gives you an opportunity to ask those questions so you can stop subconsciously sabotaging the relationship.
So, Gaylon, having this platform puts me in a very awkward position sometimes. I think people think that I'm a therapist. And I tell them all the time, although my PhD is in psychology and technology, let's be clear, I'm no therapist. I'm working on myself every day, right? But the thing that I hear often is, specifically with women, is that they say, I asked him, what is it that you want? And I gave him exactly what he said he wanted. And he still decided not to choose me. And that's the thing where I say to women, well, understand that when a person says that to you, it doesn't mean that if you checked everything on that box that it was going to be a yes. I think you went into that with a misconception. The other thing is everyone has an option to change their mind and add other things to the list. But again, if you all didn't do that check-in, like Dave Ramsey does with his wife, like, where am I at this week? You may not know that the list changed and you may be working off an old list or an old, because the other thing is too, when you ask a person that question, I feel like it's kind of like a loaded question, because if you're asking them in a specific moment, they're only answering based on what they're feeling in that moment, and it may not be the entirety. So can you kind of delve on that? Because my next question is, how does your previous experiences impact your subconscious sabotage? Because I feel like that's what happens.
Yeah. So just dealing with the issue of I've done everything and I asked them. So this is, I actually used this method as a minister
Okay.
So, for instance, a person, let's say a person only sees me every Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and they thought about something on Tuesday that they didn't want to have a
Right.
conversation with me about.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stopped me in the hallway on a Sunday before
Mm-hmm.
service. And they have, Reverend McDowell, Reverend Gaylon, I need to talk to you about XYZ. And I'll say something similar to this. I need you to contact my sister, Robin, or call the church. And we need to set up an appointment. That's conversation because you've been thinking about this for days. And
Right.
this is and I've just heard about your concern. Now, I'm not talking about stuff that's really serious to where you got to stop as a minister and deal with things. Those are two totally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about people in hospitals or people break down or somebody's family member trying to commit suicide. I'm talking about
Right.
dealing with regular church stuff. Some ministry wants to do this. They want to do that. They want to go here. They will need sign off on that. Or general complaint, human complaint stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what I try to get them to understand is I need to be able to have some dedicated time to think about this. So sometimes I'm saying that because sometimes, at least from a male perspective, those conversations from ladies are coming in times that are not always the best time to have those conversations. In other words, is
Right.
this a good time to talk? Okay.
Right.
Observe. Okay. 2, when a person says, okay, I've done everything that you asked, in that moment, because they haven't given this thought, you've given it a lot of thought. You give a person an opportunity to say, okay, instead of saying, what is, I gave him everything he needs. Okay, what do you need in this relationship? What do you, how can I anticipate? Help me
Right.
understand how to do that. So I can be there for you. So I can anticipate things before they come up to be able to support you in the things that matter to you and to support you as a person. And if the better I know and understand you and how you move, the better I can support you. Now that creates a different conversation. Now,
Okay.
relationships have various factors, like you said before. First of all, lists change. The problem is the person who changes what they want or need sometimes doesn't always inform the other person. That's bad communication, which
Mm-hmm.
means that because there's no continual check-ins, that becomes a problem. Now, some people don't like check-ins. Some people don't like evaluation. Some people don't like what's the word I want to use? Accountability.
Yes.
Therefore, you have to determine if that's a person you want to be with. So,
Right.
yeah. But now, as far as the question, and let me get back to the actual question. Could you replay it
Yeah.
again? How does your
Yeah.
previous experiences impact subconscious sabotage? I think previous experience can sabotage everything if you're not aware.
Wow. Okay.
Uh, your work, school, family, relationships across the board, but dealing specifically with relationships because it might not be your experience in a relationship, but it could be your experience
Right.
in watching your mama or watching your daddy if they were together or in separate things, watching your
Right.
grandparents, watching your older siblings. It could be a lot of factors that determine how you interact in relationships. It could be your peer group, the expectations of your peer group. So you might be a kind-hearted person, but everybody in your peer group wants to be players, and whether that's male or female, because they're both, it happens on both sides, and then you determine to meet and to move and navigate your life relationally like your peer group, even though it's
Right.
problematic to your soul growth. So
Right.
so from a standpoint of relationships, I think as clear and clean as you can get about your previous relationships, the better it is for the person. I can't speak this. You can say from the female perspective, but from a guy perspective, guys will generally say, "Why do I have to pay for what some other dude did?" That is a
Mm-hmm.
consistent conversation amongst men, that guys feel as though that they have to jump through hoops because somebody else messed up. And
And
that's a problem.
they do.
Oh,
It is.
they gotta deal with the games that some lady is playing because of what somebody else did. They got to deal with trust issues because of what somebody else did. And a lot of times, and again, this is a male perspective, and please feel
Mm-hmm.
free to share your perspective as a lady. From many times a guy will determine that it's not worth it to continue, or they'll do something worse, which is I'll have sex with this woman, and once I'm tired of having sex with her, I'm just going to move on to the next thing.
Yeah, they do a discard. And so I think it's the same on both sides. I just think that women handle it a little bit differently. Men, they tend not to want to talk about it once they recognize or once they recognize this is a repeat pattern that this person is doing. They'll say it to you once, and after that, they've made a conscious decision. Like, if I see it again, I'm out. Or like you said, this person, they downgrade you, and you don't know you've been downgraded to potential girlfriend status to I'm about to just hit this kind of situation. Where in a woman's mind, they're nurturers, and they're like, well, let's just work on it. Let's talk. Let's see how we can fix this. See, and that's where the disconnect is. So then you got a person that was like, well, if you had said something, I could have fixed it. And he's like, well, I did. I said it one time. She'll be like, well, you said that in 2012. This is 2014.
Yeah, and if people are honest, most of the time people say things way more than one time.
And they do.
And people just don't hear it.
It's like, again, if you're listening,
This is part of the subconscious sabotage. Yes, I said something a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember exactly what I said, because I just say things off the top of my head and it lands. But the listening is more than just audible vibration going to your brain. Listening is a function of understanding. And just because I'm communicating words in the same language does not mean that there's real understanding. You understand my words. You don't understand my intention behind my words, because your paradigm, your context does not allow you to hear it.
Yes.
That's the difference. So people need to clean up their past. They need to do their forgiveness work. They need to clean up their stuff, because if not, they're going to bring the baggage over to their current relationships, men or women. And as Erykah Badu said, bag lady, you're going to miss your bus. You can't hurry up. You got too much stuff. I'm going
to tell you. And I think a lot of us are doing that, folks. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we're going to ask Reverend Gaylon, what does he recommend when people can't seem to sort through their emotional and mental issues when going into relationship and creating that self-sabotage in the relationship? We'll be right back after these commercial breaks.
So, okay. So, again, welcome back to the meta behind relationships. We're talking about subconscious sabotage. So, I just want to make sure that, again, we're talking about the things that we need to do to stop ourselves from ruining our relationships by doing things that just don't work. Yeah.
That
And
just
here's the
don't
thing,
work.
it's happened all through history. So, this is not something that's new with you. If you
Yeah.
just study history, people have been subconsciously sabotaging relationships for a long time.
You know
All
what,
right.
Gayla, I'm going to say when we were talking, I look back, I did kind of flashback of relationships that I was in. And I want to say, I don't know if it was due to age or me going through previous experiences or having doubts about myself that I subconsciously sabotaged those relationships. So
Yeah.
I had like a flashback of me in those moments. So based on that is one of the things I always hear you say is that, you need to go get help. So do you recommend individuals get counseling when they struggle with changing or altering their view on relationships?
Well, I'm a big believer in counseling, whether it's go see a minister, if they can do it within the context of how do I want to say that? Because as a minister, I do marriage counseling. I've done it for
Mhm,
20 years. Uh, some ministers do a better job than others in
mhm.
uh, dealing with real world, real life stuff. And then some people are so heavy handed with, with the scripture says scripture, and they don't get to know the individuals that's in front of them. And they're just dictating to them, this is what needs to be done, instead of using that as a framework. And I'm not saying
Okay,
that your person's religious beliefs, if they have them, shouldn't be a framework, because obviously they wouldn't be in the religion if it didn't. But it would,
right.
but when it violates self-expression, when it violates a person's ability to have uh, to say I deserve to have what I desire in this relationship if it's going to be healthy and productive going forward. When those rights get violated, then I think it can be sometimes problematic. But if a person knows what they're doing properly and can bring love, understanding, and wisdom to the conversation, I think it can be highly beneficial. Two, therapy. A psychologist or a mental health professional can help a person, or a couple rather, deal with their stuff. Sometimes you got to deal with it individually and collectively.
Mhm. And
Often I'll
collectively.
tell people, like, okay, have your relationship stuff, but if you have enough too much baggage that's leaking and bleeding over into your relationship, you might need to just deal with it yourself. And I recognize to a certain extent that getting therapy can be expensive for certain people. But let me
Mhm.
tell you, divorce is really expensive.
Expensive, right?
Okay.
It is.
Like, for real, divorce is
Mhm.
expensive. Guys, and now for some women, but it primarily affects men, child support is really expensive. Ladies having two households where you have joint children, and you
It
both
gets
have to pay
expensive.
bills, to take two separate electric bills, two
Mhm.
separate everything else. Um, it doesn't, it's expensive. All right. So you can spend the money on creating what you want, or you can spend money on the cleanup. So I would say be proactive instead of reactive. You know,
And 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 I would say too, as a single person, the thing is you need to go get counseling. If you see that you're the common denominator in a relationship, and that's one of the things I did. I don't want you guys to think I'm saying something I haven't done myself. I went through counseling. I wanted to make sure that once I went through my divorce, that I was good, like I was ready. And I mean, it's been some time. It's been over 12 years, but the thing is, I wanted to make sure I was good to go back out there, right? And what I found out was that I sabotaged that relationship
yeah.
because emotionally, I was protecting myself from someone I didn't need to protect myself from. But up
Hmm.
until that point, I had been in that mode of protect myself from people. And I had done it subconsciously. Great guy. We're still really good friends. I think the world of him, he did nothing wrong. It was really me. And so I had to face that, but I had to make sure I didn't take that self-doubt into the next relationship. Because I'm going to tell you, people, the cost may not be the same as a divorce, but the cost is you not being um what you feel is in a good, successful relationship. So it's going to cost
Hmm.
you, and that baggage Like, our girl Erica Badu, you end up a bag lady because that's basically bodies. I call it bodies, the bodies that you've left behind. And it does have an impact on you. And you don't want to do that. So go get the help. I got the help. I got the realization. Some people say I'm really confident. This didn't happen on my own. And I continue to work on this. I read a lot of books. Gaylon will recommend books and I read them because I think it's important I continue to work on myself before I keep introducing this person to other people and expecting them to accept me where I'm at. Now, the one thing that is really important, and I want to make sure we hit, is how can you determine in a partner subconsciously if they're sabotaging the relationship? You're on the opposite side now. You're not the person doing it. You're the person probably receiving it.
Well, I would say the main number one thing is people not being their word yet again. It's the integrity of, okay, this is what we agreed upon. So you have the tough conversations because all relationships have to have tough conversations. Yeah. But then you come up with some agreements about even how you communicate when you're having the tough conversations. Yeah. And that's being violated, or a person is shutting down. That's one of the ways subconscious sabotage can happen, because some people, believe that before things get bad and and somebody leaves them, they'll shut down and they'll quiet quit, as the people are saying in the business world. They'll quiet quit a relationship before it ever gets there. So their partner is the last person to know that the relationship is over. So there's that type of thing. Okay, is the person shutting down? Are they at the space now where they don't even want to have the conversations? Are they unwilling to maintain their word about things that they agreed upon? All right. Those are ways in which people subconsciously sabotage. Are there more, bedroom issues? Is a person shutting down sexually? Is a person shutting down when it comes to time and attention? Those early morning calls or texts and other things that a person would get while they're at work and doing other things. Are those things slowing down? Those are ways in which a person is not saying, I don't want to be in this relationship, or I'm not happy in this relationship, but they're showing that they're unhappy, they're unsatisfied, or they've already checked out. Now, check out does not mean they always want to leave. You can be completely checked out in a relationship and still married for decades. I've seen it. I've seen it personally, and people that I know, that people like, these people have been married 40, 50 years, but they were only happy the first 10. So longevity does not necessarily always mean success.
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
But for some people, longevity is the whole conversation versus happiness, versus satisfaction, versus fulfillment, versus building and creating something that the couple desires as a whole, versus raising constructive and productive citizens, from children to people who can go out in life and make things happen with a healthy self-image, and they're not out there harming other people. People move the needle with the success thing, because one of the things that I've noticed with subconscious sabotage is when some people aren't happy, this is when people, instead of addressing the breakdowns in the relationship, they'll go get a side dude or a side chick.
Instead of just talking.
Or either addressing the breakdown or leaving, the relationship. And I say this with full context that, that a man Johnny Taylor made the song "It's Cheaper to Keep." I say that in that context. But it's, so people stay in relationships for different reasons. All I'm saying is people can check out and not leave. So you have to pay attention. Has this person checked out on me?
Right.
Has the intimacy stop? I call it the magic. When a couple is together and is working together, there's an energy about the couple that works. And it can't be fabricated.
It can't.
It's a magic that goes along with it. And in my opinion, I see a lot of couples that don't have the magic. That doesn't mean that Luther Vandross and Whitney Houston is always singing in the background and they agree about everything. There's a connection. There's a magic. there's a that person touched me and it feels so special
Yeah.
and right and all of those things that go along with that. It's a grace that goes along with it. You know, even though I know he's dealing with his issues now. Bill Cosby used to have this joke about the old couple. I don't know if he was talking about his parents, whatever. That you know, his father and mother come to the house or whatever, and the father just be sitting in the car, and the mother's in there having fun or whatever, and because it's they're married, they're a couple, whatever, but he's doing his thing, and she's like, I'm just letting him be who he want to be, and he's letting me be who I want to be, and it's all good. But it's not all good. It's not healthy. It's not productive. I'm not saying it doesn't work for them if that's their level of low expectation.
Right.
But this platform that you created and this podcast specifically is dedicated to making sure that people have fulfilling relationships, satisfying relationships, relationships that allow them to create a better life for both. In other words, by coming together, these two whole people have created a circumstance, a situation where the synergy, the coming together creates something more wonderful than what they could create individually. That is the potential of every relationship.
So you know what, Gaylon, I think you're 100% on target. So there's two things I want to say. One, I like when you said, when you see these people, and longevity doesn't always mean success, because you're correct. A lot of people are in the same household but separate bedrooms and have been for years. And that's one thing. The other thing is, I kind of look at my parents, and it's like when my dad, now when I reflect on it, I never get emotional. People know that about me. But when my dad used to say is, where is my Stella? He used to say that to me, and I'm like, that's my mom. But to him, that was his Stella. And you could see their love, the energy around them, because they just loved one another unconditionally, regardless. I remember my dad had prostate cancer, and my dad was 15 years older than my mom. And prior to that, he went through ED. And my mother, younger woman, she didn't miss a beat. She changed his diet. She was just like, okay, this is what we doing. Like, it was never a thought for her, let me just go get another husband. It was never a thought. The thought was, we're going to fix this. And then they went through that. And then he ended up with prostate cancer. And then she was like, well, we're going to work with this. So the thing is, I think, seeing them, that aura, that energy around them never shifted. They were in the same bed every night, every day. And I remember my mother, and this is not a TMI, but because he was taking hormones, he sweated so much at night when he slept going through prostate treatment. And my mother, I used to see her changing the sheets. And I used to say, well, Mom, what are you doing? She said, honey, I'm going through menopause, and so is your father. And she would laugh. I said, we both going through. And I thought, to me, I kept saying, that's what I want. And I see the second thing is this. I think sometimes people subconsciously sabotage your relationship, whether it be a male or female, because they're trying to mimic something that they think they see in other people, i.e. social media, their friends, their parents. And because that relationship isn't fitting into that idea that they have about what a relationship should be, I think subconsciously they're pushing back every time that other person doesn't measure up to that idea in their head. And I say that because I think I've done that. I think I subconsciously compare people to my dad and was like, you can't fix something? Why you can't fix something? What you mean?
Instead of looking at what people bring uniquely to the relationship.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things we might want to start taking a look at, because we do that subconsciously. I did it. Yeah. And by the way, I'm what did you call it, person? They're like the quiet bailer. They bail out. They walk out, and I'm just the
quiet quitter. Quiet quitter. Look, quiet quitters are consistent about one basic thing. Yeah. The partner is always the last one to know. They'll tell their friends sometimes, I'm tired of this guy. I'm whatever, etc. The guy or the lady is the last one to know. Quiet quitters, they'll ghost people. They'll break up with people, won't even tell them. Block their phone numbers, and they can't call and text. Like, block them on social media. You don't even know that you've been, you get it eventually because the person just doesn't communicate with you anymore.
Right.
So, so there are quiet quitters like that. And there are also quiet quitters that over a course of sometimes years, they've checked out, and they just elongated, but they really checked out of the marriage or the relationship a long time ago. And you have to be very mindful. And you got to realize that some people, again, as I said before, if they think that that sometimes they want to be on the front end of the breakup. And what I mean by that is they've had bad relationships and somebody treats them right. Somebody's treating them properly. Subconsciously, their programming is saying, the shoe is going to fall. So they start messing up unconsciously, not consciously, unconsciously. And what that does is they end up creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. This guy would never like me, but I'm too thin, or I'm too heavy, or this woman never liked me. I don't make enough money. So everything that happens, and guys will deal with this, especially with the money thing, is create situations where they are consistently offended or want to do certain things or won't do certain things because of money. When many times these more successful women are looking for a guy, they're not looking for the guy that is making a ton of money because they have their own money. The issue is, can you treat me with love and grace and understanding? Can you be kind to me? Can you protect me? Can you give me a feeling of safety and security? Can you show me some grace? Can you help me, by sharing, your masculine energy, whether that's in intimacy moments, and I'm using intimacy separately from sexual moments because intimacy is not always sex.
Exactly.
And because the guy can't wrap his brain around, she's outstriping me professionally. He can potentially look. I've seen it, and I've had conversations with successful women around this very specific conversation, and consistently the guys don't say, "Oh, I'm not doing that," or what. I don't have a problem with her making more money than me, but they really do.
They do.
So they will sabotage, mess it up, and now they're a highly successful woman, and then went and hooked up with some other guy, and then they're left holding their I knew it. I
knew she was gonna leave me.
She's gonna leave me, or she was trying to be the man, or she was trying to be whatever. Versus, is your manhood strong enough that your woman potentially can make more money and you still can be the man in the relationship?
Still be the man. That's a hard thing, folks. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we get back. Gaylon's going to close out, and he's about to give us some exercises, folks. So y'all better get y'all little notepads ready. Don't forget, this is a pre-recorded show. We would love to get your comments, and we'll make sure we post your comments on the next show. Last week we had one comment, Gaylon, and that was from me. So look, and I'm just going to go ahead and put out my comment. When we get back, Gaylon will answer my comment, and he's looking for yours. We'll be right back after this last commercial break. Hey guys, welcome back. If you're interested in promoting your business on the 5F's to Love platform, all commercials are created and designed by PICF Inc. team, and that's also my company as well. So we'll be happy to create a commercial for you, and we'll be happy to play it during all of our venues. Monday through Sunday now, we'll have new shows on. So, Gaylon, I'm going to tell you, so the question I have for you that was pertaining to one of the sessions you had prior to this, when you said, I meet no one but me. Right. And I've watched that over and over again. And my question to you is that when people keep meeting different versions of themselves and they become dissatisfied with it, what is your suggestion on how to pull back? Because they're saying, no, I'm this type of person, but you keep dating and meeting this type of person thinking it's not a version of you. It's like you're in denial that that's a version of you that you keep meeting. So how do you manage that? And then I'll give you your closeout question.
Okay, well, that's part of the expertise, and I think it'll blend into the conversation about the closeout. First of all, again, once you start to pay attention that you're the common denominator, that is the first stage of growth, because that's taking responsibility. I'm going to go back to Gary Zukav. I probably will say this almost every week. I take responsibility for the choices that I make and the consequences that they create. That's the first step of growth. 100% responsibility for what's showing up in your space. Once you take responsibility, now it's in your conscious awareness. And what I teach people is something simple, that once you become conscious of a thing, you can do two things. One, you can bring it up to release it or heal it, or you can allow it to suppress itself again. And now it'll show up in the worst time when it's triggered. So once you bring it to your awareness, now it's time to heal it. All right. Now it's time to forgive it. Now it's time to release it. Now it's time to transform it, whatever that process is. So what I would say is you have to become an expert of yourself. This is why I tell people as you're listening to this podcast, sit down and write down really clear. What is it that I don't like in relationships? Then write down, what is it that I really want in a relationship? Same thing as I was talking about before. Same thing. What is it that I must have, my bottom lines in a relationship? Get really clear. Now, you might already be in a relationship. Now, then the conversation comes into play is having that same conversation with your significant other. Now, here's the thing. People, if you're dating or married to a person who is what's the word I want to use? Has more of it's more like a introvert. They don't want to have these conversations. They don't, everything is fine. Why do we have to have this? Why do we have to talk about it? Whatever. It's going to be problematic. I'm not going to sit up there and say that it's not. It's going to be problematic because if you're already in the relationship, some parameters have already been set and you need two people agreeing about what needs to work for that to be really healthy. Which means you might have to make some decisions about whether you want to stay in that relationship or not, which is obviously not, I'm not going to tell a person that they should leave a relationship. Right. What I will say is if it's not healthy, obviously if it's violent, physically, emotionally, I'm all for it, get out of that. Right. If it's a situation to where the integrity breaches just keep happening, you really need to reevaluate how that looks. In other words, when you hear the grandmamas talk about, I had to get his check so he wouldn't go to the boat or the women or the bar or whatever, like that's your existence. You need to possibly reevaluate that. And I'm sure there are other alternatives on the side that men have about the things that they want as well. I'm just using those as examples. So how do you deal with the sabotage? You got to get clear about what you want, and then you have to have those communications. I would strongly suggest that you have that conversation if you're dating someone that Jack Canfield has with his wife. Okay, from a scale of 1 to 10, how have you encountered me? Say it again now.
So no, I said the scale of 1 to 10 thing. You think people should ask that?
Okay. Oh, absolutely. How are you encountering me? And what would make it a 10?
Well, but Gaylon, wait, what if what they say hurt my feelings though?
Okay, but here's the thing. Then you can't have a legitimate conversation. Now, it might need to be some parameters around the rules of how that's communicated. Yeah. And that's for you. I need you to be able to communicate that in a way that doesn't give me a sense of being devalued in this relationship. All right. Okay. I need you to give me this understanding in the context that that I'm bringing my wholeness to this relationship and you're bringing your wholeness to this relationship, that there's some aspects of this that I can make you feel whole.
Right.
I can share my wholeness with you. I can compliment you. I don't complete you.
Right.
And that and is this within my wheelhouse to do? And what do I mean by this is in my wheelhouse to do? If my wife came to me and said, I need you to build this extension on the house and steps and this, that's outside my wheelhouse. I'm not that type of guy, you know.
Right.
So if you met a guy and you all decide to be committed or married, and he says, I need you to make, big mama type meals every day, that's outside your wheelhouse. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't try to say, okay, let me see what I can do. But the expectation that they're going to get big mama type meals every day might be outside your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So it's understanding those dynamics. Okay. It can be a situation, circumstance where somebody is saying something that you don't feel as though you want to do. There are people who try to bring other people into the relationship, other people into the bedroom, all type of things.
Right.
You have to be clear that if they're saying this is what makes this a 10, does this violate a bottom line for me?
Right.
Okay. And be really clear about what that means and what that looks like. I just wish you stop complaining about the money. No, well, we got to stay on this money because we're a couple. Now, your decisions affect me. So again, it can't be just making it a 10 means you shut up and be obedient and submit. That doesn't work. Making it a 10 is me being very clear about what are the fundamental things I need to make this relationship healthy for me.
And also,
hopefully I answered that.
You did, Gaylon. Also, I think it'd be great if you can elaborate on people not attacking people when they say, evaluate me and, you weren't a 10 this week. It's not an attack, and I think people get like, oh, you didn't know. It should just be like, this is the highlight reel kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like,
these are my
okay.
concerns. Yeah.
Sometimes it's addressing a breakdown. You said, and this didn't happen. That could be a part of it. The other part of it is, and this is where the sensitivity comes into play. I don't care what the age is. Some people don't want to have grown-up conversations. Part of the challenge that comes into play with relationships is the lack of grown-up conversations. Grown-up conversations require responsibility. And the reason why I know people don't like having grown-up conversations is because they lead with their emotion first versus this is what I observed. This is what I would don't like. This is what I would like. Now you can bring the emotion of what it means to you. And you notice that anybody that works a job and you're working with employees, when people start with a conversation of you made me feel, or you, or they lead with those type of conversations, what ends up happening is it's hard to transition to them to what needs to be done. So what I would say is to help people with that particular thing, I would give them a statement. Deal with the problem, not the person. What do I mean by that? The issue that's at the table, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Now you're attached to the issue, but you're not the issue. The person that you love is beyond the issue. They have an issue, or there is an issue in the relationship, but you and your partner are not, quote unquote, the issue. The problem comes into play is when people make people think, or they take it upon themselves to believe that I'm the issue. So when a person believes they're the issue, they'll say things like, I can never get anything right, and everything I do is wrong, and things like that. Those are trigger subconscious words that says, I either think I'm the issue, or I think that you think that I am the issue. So it doesn't make a difference what I do, you're not going to be happy. Now, sometimes that can be legit. Sometimes no matter what a person does, they're not going to be happy. But that's when people need to start talking about how to dissolve a relationship, or go get help, go see the therapist, go see the marriage counselor, spend some money, and do what you need to be able to do. Go get the relationship books, etc. When I counsel people, couples, premarital counselor, or dating, or couples in general, I always give them an emotional needs survey. Why do I do it? I do it because it's necessary for people to become conscious about what they're not saying. So I have people fill out the form, and then and with pre-pandemic, and I've been doing couples counseling now on Zoom. So I have to have my assistant do it. But when I did it in person, I would meet with people. I would sit them down. I would have them fill it out in front of me in my office. Go to this part or go to this other room. You fill it out. You fill it out, and then give it to each other. I'm not reading it because some of the questions are exceptionally intimate.
Right.
But what my point is, you think that your partner is experiencing you as out of 1 to 5, a 5 sexually, and they're at a 2. Now what do you do? Okay, you think that you're communicating at a 5, and they said that you're a 1. Now what do you do?
What do you do?
Okay, they think
I hate to laugh because I know that happens. That's serious. It's serious.
Right,
I should not, but it's true.
They think that you haven't created proper borders or I think borders would be a great word of how you keep your family out of you all's business. Right. And you think you do a great job doing it. So what ends up happening every time I do this is the couples get enlightened, not only about themselves, but about their partners. So asking the tough questions makes a difference. I literally have every premarital counseling couple, I have them read a particular book about questions you need to ask yourself before you get married. I have them doing emotional surveys. I'm doing this because psychologists, they make up these things. You can pull them from the internet. It's not brain science.
Yeah, it's not.
The question comes into play is stop long enough to evaluate yourself and allow your partner to evaluate his or herself, and then you all evaluate the relationship. That's how you get it to where you need it to be. And if you have a person that you feel as though you have to consistently drag, then you have to make a decision about what you want, your expectation, and whatever, because people stay married for various reasons. I was watching on the internet where the guy who owns the wrestling, WWE guy, Vince McMahon, found out, that he had to step down because he had a adulterous relationship. And then it came out from some of the wrestlers, not publicly, but some of the wrestlers. Oh man, he hasn't been living it with his wife for the last 15 years. Yes. But because they're the co-owners of a company, all right?
Right.
They keep the money together. Their children help run the company. The daughter is now the CEO and the president. Because she ran for Senate twice. She lost, but she didn't want that to be a part of the conversation. She was on Trump's cabinet. She didn't want that to be a part of the conversation. So they were actually living separate lives, but to keep the brand together, they stayed married. So people stay married in relationships for reasons outside of love, outside of fulfillment, outside of satisfaction, and you have to determine what it is you want. And if you want a satisfied, fulfilling relationship with integrity, love, and grace, understanding, and peace, then you have to be very active in creating it.
Guys, I'm going to tell you, if you didn't understand what was going on, you might want to replay this. Again, it's a pre-recorded session. I'm going to get off the couch now and let Gaylon close out his show, because I've taken notes, and those notes and anything that he provides to you for his research material, it always goes into the pre-recorded session. Just click those links and make sure you watch. And we would love to hear from you, so please leave comments. Gaylon, again, thank you for letting me have my own personal session. And I don't mind sharing my sessions with you guys because I learn a lot, and I hope you do. I'll see you next week, Gaylon.
Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send Christine some links from my other podcast where I actually covered a few subjects like this, where I think people can drill down on it, about creating a mental equivalent, because I think what people need to have is a picture in their mind and conviction about what it is that they desire. A mental equivalent in metaphysics is clarity of thought and conviction of feeling. Clarity of thought means how definite and clear can you get about what it is that you're seeking to experience. Get a clear picture in your mind This is what I want. And it might not always show up initially as a picture. What are the attributes that you want to experience in a relationship? So what I would like you all to do is to be able to create that pattern, and then that conviction of feeling. I think I said before to look up Emmett Fox's mental equivalent. Another one, it's a little pamphlet. It's all over the internet. If not, you can buy it. I think you can get it at it's a store on unity.org. I think they sell it. And the other one is Life is Consciousness by Emmett Fox. Those two pamphlets, one is like $4 or $5. Another one's like $2. What those two things will do is help you understand how your mind is connected to everything that goes on in your life. Study those two things really well. Hopefully you watch my Developing Your Mind for Success seminar on YouTube. Just look up Developing Your Mind for Success, Gaylon McDowell, and it popped right up. And I want you to look at another one, and it was called, I believe I called it Asking You Will Receive, or something like that. Asking It Is Given. I'm trying to remember. Now, my brain is saying it, and now I obviously need to look it up before I let you all go, because if I don't, my brain won't let it go. But I did a seminar about how do you ask mentally? How do you ask spiritually? And it's important for you to be mindful. It's called Ask and Receive. That's what it was called. Ask and Receive. Go to that, watch that particular seminar, online seminar presentation, where I go through the steps of how do you ask when you're working with universal law? How do you ask when you're training your subconscious mind? How do you ask when you're working with divine principles? This is important, because when you apply it to the context of your relationship, you need to be clear about what it is you want. The last thing that I want you to do is, as I was saying about writing down what you like and what you don't like, if you could write the perfect letter, okay, saying you were writing a loved one back in the day, when people actually wrote letters, didn't text, but actually write a letter. You can put it in your phone if you don't want people to find it in your notes or whatever. But if you would write a letter up explaining the perfect relationship for you, what would it look like? And then after you write it, ask yourself why. Why? Why would this be perfect? Now, let's clear. Perfect is a relative term. And if your letter is beyond your ability to grasp, as I talked about with the SMART goals last week, if it's not something that you can really get behind and believe is possible for you, then it's just writing Harry Potter or novel fantasy. You write out what you desire, yes, and then ask yourself, is this really what I want? Is this really what I desire? Is this really what I want to experience? And if so, why? And out of that letter, pull out your bottom lines. So just write a letter, and see what comes up out of it. So with that, I'm going to close out. Definitely check out the Ask and Receive seminar on YouTube. And trust me when I tell you, it will help you relate it to not only prosperity and life success, but directly to your relationship success. Take care. God bless you. I love you, even if I don't know you, because I know who you are. Take care.
We know what you made of. I do better offline, yeah. I've been calling to a God. I'm in tune with the signs. I'm just trying to let go. I'm just trying to be me. I'm just trying to do fine. Moon landed with the elevation. Armstrong with the levitation. My third eye needed calibration. I was heat rock when I notated. I've been going crazy. Stone face when I kill beat, leaving no trace on location. Premeditated, ayy.